What's up, YouTube? Dark Lord Diablos here, coming at you with a Duel Master deck profile on Sacred Beasts. Now, I own a Sacred Beast in real life that's somewhat similar to this, but because you know how Master Duel works, I have to build it with what I got. And yes, regrettably, I do have a lot of ultra rares. But this is my build that I feel comfortable running, and it has won me a few duels in ranked matches. And not only that, the deck's actually kind of fun. Now, those who don't know who the Sacred Beasts are, in the GX anime, it was a major plot point for Season 2, I think. I could be wrong, it could have been Season 1, where Jaden and his friends faced off against the Shadow Riders to prevent them from getting a hold of these 3 cards. And in the end, they technically kind of failed, but Jaden ends up beating the Sacred Beast and sealing them back away anyway. So, yeah. They're based off of the Egyptian god cards, with Uriah being an inverse of Cypher the Sky Dragon and with the element of fire, and Haman being an inverse of Ra, instead of having the element of fire, having the element of lightning. And Raviel, I don't understand what Raviel and element Raviel is supposed to have in contrast to Obelisk, but being the big buff blue one. But ironically, and kind of like how it is in real life, where Obelisk was actually the best god card instead of Ra, Raviel is the best Sacred Beast and is more of the figurehead of the Sacred Beast versus Amon, which is kind of cool. Now, how the Sacred Beasts usually work is they can only be special summoned by tributing 3 types of cards. And I don't mean like specific type, like Fiend, Fairy, or Dragon. I mean like category. For example, Uriah requires 3 continuous trap cards to be special summoned from your hand. Haman requires 3 continuous spell cards to be special summoned from the hand. And Raviel, completing the trifecta, requires 3 specifically Fiend type monsters to be special summoned from the hand. Now, none of these really seen competitive play, and the only play value that I've seen that I can know for sure that any of these cards saw was Haman, because Crystal Beast needed a boss monster, and they were so desperate for a beat stick that they relied on Haman, Lord of Striking Thunder, which he isn't that bad. While in defense position, your opponent can only attack it, and when it attacks something, it deals 1,000 points of effect damage when it destroys something by battle and sends it to the graveyard. So it's not that bad of a trade-off considering, how cards were back then. But even so, it still didn't see that much competitive play. Hell, even now the deck only sees minor, local play, considering that's where I go to play this deck. But something good did come out with the new support, which was a mini engine conceived of 3 cards, which I will discuss right now. We have Chaos Summoning Beast, which is a level 1 Fiend monster with 0 attack and 0 defense, and you could tribute this card to cheat out any of the Sacred Beasts from your hand. Also, you can banish it to look up their field spell, which we'll go over here in a minute, but the main point is you want to use him to summon the Sacred Beasts out from your hand. He is accompanied by Dark Beckoning Beast, one of the key players in this deck, being a level 2 Fiend monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. And when he's normal summoned, you can not only search any of the Sacred Beasts, but you can search out any card that, has their name involved in it. Like, for example, you can search out the field spell, you can search out this spell card I'll go over here in a minute, this trap card I'll go over in a minute, their fusion, any of the Sacred Beasts, this thing, and even your Chaos Summoning Beast. But the main focus you want to search out with Dark Beckoning Beast's effect is this spell card right here. Probably the most important spell card in the deck, besides these 2, and that is Opening of the Spirit Gates, an anime reference / turned into a card. When this card is activated, you can add any of the Sacred Beast or one monster that specifically is in your deck that lists any of the Sacred Beasts. Now, the play is, you normal summon Dark Beckoning Beast to add Opening of the Spirit Gates, then add Chaos Summoning Beast to your hand. Hopefully you already have a Sacred Beast, but you can do something else with them if you don't. Because Dark Beckoning Beast's on field effect allows you to normal summon a Fiend monster with 0 attack and defense, in addition to your normal summon. So you can get out 2 monsters on the field and deck fin at the same time. But not only that, you can go up a link ladder of sorts. You can go into Link Karibo, and then go into Relinquish Anima. Now I know what you're saying, for those who don't know how the deck works. How can you go and Relinquish Anima if you already used your level 1? Well, my dear viewer, the second effect, this thing has 3 effects by the way, of opening the Spirit Gates is you could discard a card to summon a monster with 0 attack in the fence that is Fiend type from your graveyard. And now you have 3 monsters of the Dark attribute, but with different types. So you could go into something like Curious, which is what I go into, Curious of the Lightsborn Dominion. This works really well with combos, sending your Dark Summoning Beast to the graveyard, or Diablos to the graveyard, because you tribute quite a few in this deck, and summoning a 3000 beat stick even on your opponent's turn is really valuable. Now going on with the other Sacred Beast cards, the other 4 cards that we're going to go over is Fallen Paradise. Your second most important spell, well, I think second or third. It depends on if you value negation or card advantage more than others. This gives protection to all your Sacred Beasts, and while you have it and their fusion on the field, you can draw 2 cards every turn. So on turn 1, it's a +2 if you have a +1 if you have a Sacred Beast on field. On turn 2, if this is still on the field by your next turn, it's a +3. So you can gain card advantage pretty well if it stays on the field. Note, if it stays on the field. The third or second most important spell card in the deck is the continuous spell Cerulean Skyfire. Not only does it give Haman the anime effect of using any spell on the field for its tribute special summon, but while it's in attack position, you can negate the activation of a spell or trap card and turn it back into defense position, which activates its defensive capabilities, as well as negating a spell or trap card, which is really good in this day and age, considering most people play spells. Its other effect is, when a Sacred Beast is removed from the field, you take no more battle damage for the rest of the turn, which comes in handy occasionally, I'm not gonna lie, considering how this deck's speed is. The final Sacred Beast support card that is a spell or trap variant is Hyperblaze. You barely use this, but it does come in handy with its effects occasionally. I run one of it because I run one of Uriah. Now what this does is, it allows you to special summon Uriah by just using normal trap cards, as well, like Cerulean Skyfire does for Haman, but also Uriah gains 1000 attack for each spell card in either player's graveyard during the battle phase, or when an attack is declared involving him or others. Now, the thing is, if you have a continuous spell card, trap card, due to its own effect, it gains 1000 for each continuous trap card in the graveyard. It gets a double bonus of sorts because, again, this is a separate effect. So if you activate this and send Awakening of the Sacred Beast to the graveyard, as well as another copy of Awakening of the Sacred Beast to the graveyard, it will gain 4000, which is normally enough to beat over whatever you're dealing with, unless you're dealing with, Access Code Talker or something of the like. Now, the final trap card is the normal trap card, Awakening of the Sacred Beast. This is, again, another card that is an anime reference, and basically what it allows you to do is it gains effects depending on how many Sacred Beasts with different names on the field you have. If you have one, during each of your normal summons, you gain life points equal to the attack of that monster, which is really good to fuel a specific spell card, which is another important piece of the puzzle that's not Sacred Beast support. If you have 2 with different names, negate the effects of all your monsters your opponent controls, being a one-sided skill drain, which is very good, but again, with the cost of having 2 different Sacred Beasts on the field. And if you manage to get 3 of them on the field, I don't see this happening as much as you think, any monster sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead. Sometimes that's a detriment to yourself because Haman's effect can only do 1000 damage when it sends an opponent's monster to the graveyard by battle. But again, it's very detriment to your opponent. Now, the reason why I run 3 is mostly because of the life point effect. And that is for Map. I cannot pronounce its actual name, I'm calling it Map. If you at me, I do not care. What Map does is, at the start of your main phase 1, kind of like Pot of Extravagance, I think that's the one. Pot of Extravagance or something else, but there's 2 pots that do this. You have to activate at the start of main phase 1. And when you do, you add a monster with 0 attack from your deck to your hand, but have your life points afterward. And it cannot activate its effects until next turn, or until you normal summon it. Which, depending on scenario, you can add either Ash Blossom, which is something I normally don't add, or you add your combo piece, Dark Beckoning Beast. All this deck's function is to do is to search out this card, so this card can search out this card, and this card can search out this card, so you can build up field presence. That's essentially how consistent this deck is. It's really consistent, but it really doesn't end on a finisher that is sustainable to win, occasionally. Now, there's one more Sacred Beast card that I forgot to mention, which is this Fusion, which, to be fair, you can honestly take out the Fusions and add more Link spamming, Link monsters into it, or more Xyz monsters into it, which we will discuss when we get to our extra deck monster. But basically, this acts like an interruptible, non-negate fusion summon for a fusion monster that involves Uriel, Hammond, or Reveille if you have any of them on the field. And normally, you're either going into their new fusion, which has a very, very stoppable way of banishing your opponent's entire field, or just go out and bring Big Boy here, who has 10,000 attack during your opponent's turn. This also offers them protection as well. So, basically, if you think you could go in the kill with Plant Verde Anaconda while you have a Sacred Beast on the field, I suggest you do it. Now, other cards that I run here is 2 Ash Blossom, 2 Dark Summoning Beast to cheat out a Sacred Beast during your first turn, so you can completely avoid the no battling effect, or banish it from the graveyard to search the Sacred Beast. A Kaiju, because occasionally you do need to Kaiju something away on your opponent's field. Diablos, because he works extremely well in this deck and is a great boss monster for hand looping. 1 copy of Uriah, because regrettably he is the weakest of the Sacred Beast. 2 copies of Amon, debatably one of the best. And 2 copies of Reveille, because Beat Stick. 1 copy of Ubel for Xyz plays, because you can easily bring her out from the graveyard. And this thing, Reveille's spell hand trap monster retrain, which allows you to take Reveille, boost his attack by double, and attack everything on the field with Reveille, which we will see here in a moment when I go to the replay. Spells that I'm running that aren't part of the combo are Monster Reborn, because Monster Reborn's are really good. Solemn Judgment, because Solemn Judgment's really good. Solemn Warning, because Solemn Warning's pretty good, and that's about it. Oh, and 1 Raigeki, because Raigeki is a field nuke, which is really good, especially for Master Duel. Now, moving on to the extra deck, I already explained why I run these 2. I'm running Sky Palace because it is a cheaper variant to Gustav Max, because normally I would run Gustav Max in the train package in here, but again, this is Master Duel, so I have cost I have to consider. The Spider Duo, because this, depending on how low or high your life points, can make all your monsters go really, really big. And this, because it's a 4,000 level 12 beat stick that could potentially banish stuff. You also run Zeus, because when you're done attacking with the Xyz monster, going into him is really, really useful. Our Link monsters are more interesting. I already explained why I run Link Karibo and Relinquish Anima, but I will explain their individual effects can be useful as well. Link Karibo contributes something on your field, contribute itself to reduce a monster's opponent's attack to 0. Also, you contribute a level 1 monster and special summon it from the graveyard, which works very well with Diablos here. Because let's say if someone's attacking you, you contribute off Link Karibo to train its monster to 0, and then bring this guy out in attack or defense position. Now you have a big booty on board, and your monster's attack points are down to 0. Which, by the way, Diablos cannot be targeted by effects, so he's very annoying to deal with, particularly if your opponent only has targeting effects. Anima can basically target a face-up monster on the field and equip it to itself that it points to, which can be very useful if your opponent makes the dumb decision of putting their boss monster in front of the extra monster zone. That happens more than you think. Salamangreat Bunny, because I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, is there to basically get him off the field and does a similar thing to Link Karibo. We got 2 of this Nightmare package because popping a spell on monster is really good. I already explained why Verticonda is here. I already explained why Curious the Light Swarm Dominion's here, but occasionally when your opponent's dumb enough to destroy it, you can add a card back from your graveyard to your hand, which can help you win the game. Boral Sword Dragon, if you can get him on field, actually is really good in this deck because it can end games. I've ended games with him multiple times. And if you can get Ereshkigal, Goddess of the Underworld, Goddess of the Closed World on the field, she is really good as well. I run her in here particularly to basically, like, you know, kaiju, to remove a monster my opponent controls. It's a very good card in general. You could replace some of these monsters in an extra deck, like you could probably replace Dimension Fusion with Twin Twisters or something. Get rid of these 3 cards and give them some more Xyz material or better Link materials. In fact, I kind of do advise that for practical use. You could probably replace these 2 with, let's see here, you know, with Appaloosa. Or, damn, I have very few Link monsters that are good. Hold on, let's see. Appaloosa, yeah, you can replace it with Appaloosa and Nightmare Unicorn. And probably, if you have it, add Gustav Max to your deck list. So, with me explaining how this deck works out of the way, we're going to go to a replay of how the deck works. And probably one of the most funniest replays in my arsenal. I'm just going to speed it up because he's playing Cardians and I do not know how they do work, but it takes even a long time on the fast replay, so there's that. He does destroy most of my field though. Note, if you're ever going up against Sacred Beasts, try to do your best to get rid of this card, because this card makes a lot of graveyard plays possible. This was a purposely baited play so I can do something more interesting to this guy. See, the revival effect of Spirit Gates is a soft once per turn, not a hard once per turn. Sacred Beast's third ability allows you to add a continuous spell from your graveyard to your hand. And that is typically how you want to run the Sacred Beast deck. If you have any ideas or how to make this better, or have any questions in the comments, please put them down below. I try to keep more interactive with my comments as much as possible. I bring out a video once every week or so, give or take, depending on my work schedule. My work schedule is usually all over the place, so me bringing out videos every week is functional, I guess, but this video is going to come out like 8 days after my Heldrick video. And if you want for more Yu-Gi-Oh content, either Master Duel or EDO Pro, subscribe for more and hit the bell notification to get notifications if you're interested. If not, hey, glad you stopped by to watch this video, and I hope to see you next time. Ciao.